Before I Die, New Mexico Festival 2024. Today we are at the offices of Death Doula Professionals and also Conscious Crossroads and the Life Stories Danielle Lupensky. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors who make this festival possible. That's me, a good goodbye. If you're planning to die. The Bernalillo County Indigent Program, Better Place for Us, which we had Jess speaking to us at Passages International, which is another sponsor. End of Life Options New Mexico, French Funerals and Cremations, and Keeper Memorials. Our theme today is preparing for the inevitable. And one of the things about preparing for the inevitable is you gotta downsize your stuff. As my friend Kathy says, shed or you're dead. We'll get into that. Our panelists are down here at the end. Miriam Ortiz-Pino, More Than Organized, MC, and Kimberly Harms, and both internationally renowned speakers and best-selling authors. But let's start with Miriam. Give us a little background about what you're doing in downsizing.
Yeah, I am a certified professional organizer. I founded More Than Organized in the year 2000, and I have been helping people, I prefer to say right size than downsize. Many years. I work with a lot of small business owners as my clients, so I can help with businesses as well. But it's all connected. Learn how to make the decisions, and you can apply it to any area of your life.
Well, Kathy Dempsey, I started my career as an ER trauma nurse and then went into hospital administration. For the last 27 years, I've been a keynote speaker internationally, conferences and conventions, not only for healthcare, but corporations. And I talk to them about shedding. Shed or you're dead. Today we're going to talk about shed before you're dead.
And I'm Kim Harms, and I've just been around the block a lot in life. So right, and I am currently shedding. I have successfully, in the last 2 months, downsized from 4 pods from a cabin to move down to Kansas City to 2 pods. I'm getting half. And I love all of these wonderful helpers that can come and help us do that. I think we need to know more about them, but they're out there ready to help us because it's paralyzing to sit there and look at all the stuff and think, oh, I didn't know anything. So there are people but we are missing one. Where's Lenny?
Where's Lenny?
Yeah.
Have you seen Lenny? Have you seen him?
I haven't seen him.
He's green. This is his girlfriend, Liz. He's always with me, so I know he's got to be around here somewhere. I tell you what, I'd be willing to give a copy of my Shed or You're Dead book to the first person who can find Lenny. Okay. It's a really book. A lot of times he likes to go under chairs. Yeah, all around. He's pretty. Well, here's Lenny. Can you all say good afternoon to Lenny? Now, Lenny said, when you get to the Bride Dive Festival, you share with them my favorite story, of course. So Lenny's story comes from my journal entry dated on July 29th, 1998. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and I rushed into a quarterly ethics meeting in the hospital. And I ran into one of my friends. I would call him a strange friend. Does anybody have any strange friends? Don't point to me right now. You are strange. Yeah. Well, David was strange, at least what I thought. He owned a pet snake. So I thought it'd be nice. I said, David, good morning, and how are you, and how's your snake? He said, well, I'm fine, Kathy. My snake is fine, but my lizard is dead. I said, said it didn't shed its skin. The lizards grow by shedding their skin. If they're not shedding, they're not growing and they die. I said, well, what can we learn as humans from the lizard? He said, we all grow physically, mentally, spiritually, in all different ways. But if we don't shed, if we don't grow, we die. And it was like the light bulb went on. Shed or you're dead. So, Lenny and I travel around the world many, many times. He's probably got more frequent flyer miles than most people do. And we help people shed. And today, we are going to talk about one topic, and that's our shedding our stuff. So, before we get started on the panel, I'm going to be a little tied up here too. Is there anybody who would take care of Lenny? Oh, thank you very much. It's Courtney. Courtney, thank you very much. Let's give Courtney a hand. All right, take it away, Gail.
All right. And I have also written a book about downsizing.
Yes. Oh, this is an amazing book. This is an amazing book. It's Kicking the Bucket List: 100 Downsizing and Organizing Things to Do Before You Die. And it is amazing. It's just all color. It's got all its tips. I've been through it like 3 times. So if you haven't gotten this book, it is a must buy.
We'll have the book signing later.
What can I have to say about the book?
Yes.
You can't just buy the book.
You
gotta do the 100 things.
Yes.
Okay.
And 2/3 of it are tips about how to write down the process of identifying and getting rid of stuff. Creative places you could donate or sell or whatever. And why don't we talk a bit about our emotional attachment to our stuff? That's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
To our stuff.
Yeah.
It's our identity, right? The stuff we have proves we're interesting people. It proves we know stuff. It proves we traveled well. It proves we knew people and they cared about us, or we overly cared for them. It could be both. Because many of the things we keep are actually for other people, right? Like, what does that say about you? That you're caring, or that you intend to do things you don't follow through on? So my biggest hint is recognize that it is part of your identity, but you get to create your story moving forward. So it's new time, new day, time to be who you really want to be, not always should be aspects of it. But it doesn't really prove that you're a smart person if you have 8,000 books and 27 different business cards. It really doesn't.
You want to comment?
I would just say, how did you know I had 8,000 books?
2 reasons you're in this room.
And I used to have an interesting life, but really nobody cares anymore at this stage, so it doesn't matter what the heck I did before. And I did have my connection with stuff was stuff that was connected to my kids. Right. So like, their 5th grade report card, or the amazing rabbit that my son drew with one line. It was absolutely fabulous. And all these things that were in boxes and boxes and boxes, I never looked at them. They were in the garage. But when I saw them, I just didn't want to part with them. And the tip that I really found was the digital age. You could just take a picture of it and then let it go. That was really helpful to me. But it was, even though it was helpful, it was very, very hard to do. It was a painful thing. I had to go through the grieving process for all this stuff, but it was wonderfully freeing when I got it done.
Yes. And I will say, from the time you were born, when you shed that cord, remember? Somebody cut that cord?
We don't actually remember.
Well, have a belly button?
Yes. I have a reminder of it, but I don't remember.
I've only had one person actually say that in all my Anyway, you were there. You got a belly button, okay? So it's a reminder. I call it your shed button. So if you're having problems emotionally, you just push this little shed button. But from the time you were born to the time that you will die and shed your body, those are physical sheddings. But in between those, there's a continual attachment and detachment, attachment and detachment, attachment and detachment. And they're not physical ones like cutting that cord, but they're the emotional ones. And as Gail said, emotional ones to our stuff is one of the biggest things because we like our stuff. You know, as small or big as it is, we like our stuff. But the challenge in life is to let go of that stuff that's not serving us anymore, that could serve someone else. And to remember that that is really the key to peace and happiness.
The people looking for that stuff won't find it in your living room. You know, people coming over every day going, do you have some of these things? You got to put it out where they're going to find it.
And our kids don't want it. My daughter and son-in-law said to my husband and I, when he was still alive, that we had a big outbuilding or cabin that was kind of full of stuff from our other house that we had downsized. We thought we were downsizing, but we just were moving it somewhere else. So they said, my daughter and her husband said to both of us that we couldn't die until we cleaned out that garage. But my husband died anyway. It was up to me. Now I've got 2 months.
It's not going to keep you alive. It's not going to keep you alive.
How many people have said to themselves, I'll do it later, or I have plenty of time, or that's something for when I retire. And now you are there and you don't have as much energy and you would rather be having fun than dealing with the stuff. And so you put it off even longer. And then you assume your kids want it all. And so that's all right, they'll deal with it. And then they hate you. But there's some issues there as well. So it's your chance to write the last chapter of how you want to be remembered and thought of and created. You're not going to forget your kid if you get rid of everything but the bunny drawing.
I have released the bunny drawing. It's in my phone.
See, I would have kept the bunny drawing. I would have let go of everything.
It's on
but
my phone.
The bunny.
It's on my phone.
Okay.
It's on my phone, so I can reproduce it anytime.
That's good.
I wanted to show you, I don't know if any of you would identify with this, but I have a little slide here I'd just like you to think about. This probably isn't even any of you at all. Oh, this will be yours one day.
Thanks, Mom.
Talk about that garage.
That's right. Yeah, that happened to me. And then one child is angry at the other because the one that lives the closest will be responsible for doing all that. And the other one gets a pass because they live 8 hours away. And then the one that's cleaning up is resentful of the one, and then there's trouble.
Oh, and it never fails. The person in charge of it will give away the one thing that all of a sudden the other person was in love with and never talked about for the last 50 years. Yeah, it's really important to communicate what you actually are interested in. And it doesn't matter what the item is, but which ones do you want? Which ones resonate for you? I mean, my grandma had us all go around with little colored dots on the backs of things. And then she had a ledger. And anything that was a tie, she had us over for a meeting. She needed cookies, and we had to fight it out ahead of time. But
Great memories.
yeah, we did. Because it was decided ahead of time. And there was very few things that more than one person wanted. And some of the stuff was like, well, but it was special to
you know, in my situation, when my mom died in her early 50s of colon cancer, and then my dad died a few years later in a car accident. So all of a sudden, I'm traveling around the world, and the house is up for sale, and it's sold, and I have 40 years of my current stuff, in the house. And so my sister and I talked about it. I said, do you want something? She goes, I want the grandfather clock. And I said, well, I like my parents' bedroom suit. And then we said, well, what else do we do? And I said, we have the most amazing parents. And they left us way too early in life. So why don't we give everything in this house to the Tennessee Baptist Children's Home, which is group homes that take care of children who all their parents are in prison. And they didn't have good parents. They didn't have the role models that my sister and I had. And I cannot tell you the joy that I felt when that truck came and just took everything in that house and it was gone away. And I just still think about it today, that it brings me joy that it was given away to children and these group homes that really could use stuff.
In my family, so when COVID hit, my parents used to spend summers in New Mexico and winter in Florida. They had a lovely home here that they had moved all the stuff that they inherited from their parents that they were holding on to and new stuff. And so it was in a fairly good-sized house here in Albuquerque. And when COVID hit, they got stuck in Florida. And then they got COVID in January of 2021. And they had to be hospitalized, and then they were in a skilled nursing facility. And that's when my dad said, okay, we're ready for assisted living in Florida. And it was decided to sell the house and do an estate sale while my parents were still alive. And I thought, well, they're still alive. That should be, emotionally okay. But it turned out, and so my brother and I, who live here in Albuquerque, were responsible for clearing out the personal papers and the photographs and anything we didn't want to sell in the estate sale. And I'm going through this stuff with my brother, and we're having lunch, and I say, well, at least Mom and Dad are still alive. We're not mourning their death while we're doing this. But after everything's said and done, and we sent stuff to my parents, and my dad's like, "You got rid of my favorite sweater." Sorry, Dad. But so there's still some guilt trip about letting go and their bedroom set. My husband wouldn't let me take the bedroom set. He's like, "I don't have room for it." But I found that carrying that guilt about letting go of the bedroom set wasn't serving me well, and I came up with this mental image of like being in one of those big cargo planes up in the sky with the back hatch that drives and it falls down. It's like, I feel much lighter now.
I'm flying. It's interesting, when I moved from the East Coast to where I currently live now in Scottsdale, Arizona, about 16 years ago. So I put my two houses for sale, one in Tennessee and one up in Delaware. And I had the real estate lady come over. And so I was just talking to her, and I said, well, tell me, what is the biggest challenge in your real estate business? And she said, the number one challenge is people don't want to move because they don't know what to do with their stuff. If anybody could solve that problem,
that's what professional entire field of thousands of us that know what to do with your stuff. And we have the resources to get your stuff other places. There's really only 4 things you can do with your stuff. You can, maybe there's like 87 creative. But 87, go. You can throw it away. Yeah. You can donate. You can gift it to someone, or you can sell. Yep. That's it. How hard is that? Like I say that to people every time I've talked to it before you die. And it never fails. I get 4 calls the next week. What do I do with my stuff? I told you.
Or recycle.
Well, by trash, I mean trash or recycle, depending on the material. But people hold on to it for the exact right way to do it. And there is no right way. There is ways. So you can't have it both ways. You can't not have it, and you can't not decide to not have it.
The only reason I was able to get from 4 pods to 2 pods, or from a very large cabin with that big garage to 2 pods, and I'm going to take down to Kansas City, is because I hired a professional company that came down and they were able to, basically I sat there and I went through the boxes and I said, donate trash Kansas City, donate trash Kansas City, and they swept it out of my hand as quickly as possible. As soon as I said that,
Yes.
it was
No
due.
second guess.
No second
guess.
They swept it out.
Right.
And then they got the trash guys to come in.
Right.
So I couldn't go back. My daughter and son-in-law talked to them. I'm kind of wondering why they would have
Yeah. Double think it. They will go to the trash, they will put it in their car, they will bring it back out of their car, they rearrange it, it's back in the closet the next time you show up. So it's like we remove as much as possible each time because decisions, that's where it's hard. Our brains don't want us to make decisions. Yeah.
I just wanted to note the last 12 years of my professional life, I worked with senior living.
Mm-hmm.
And I counseled a lot of families and prospective residents on moving into the appropriate environment. And many of them were resistant to moving, not because they couldn't imagine themselves living in this new environment, making friends, being active, being looked after and supported, but they couldn't even begin to think of the downsizing or right-sizing process. It was overwhelming.
Yes.
And in 2012 is when the first nationally certified senior move manager popped up in Portland. Of course, now there's several, but that's all part of their thing, is to kind of hold your hand and guide you through the process.
Right. So senior move managers, it's a subset of professional organizers that work specifically with seniors to downsize and move into assisted living or care homes or whatever they're doing. And they just specialize in helping older folks make decisions. I believe we have one intern, although I haven't met him. And he's not a member of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals like I am. So we're sister associations, but we do have several professional organizers. So we can coordinate whatever kind of help you want.
One thing that I did is I decided I was not going to grow old and to deal with this issue. So when I moved to the East Coast out to Scottsdale, I said I'm going to shed. Walk your talk, Kathy. So what I did was I sent all my parents' wedding albums and pictures and things down to my sisters in Tennessee and shipped them all with the family memories and stuff. And then I had a guy came in and give me a price for everything in the house. And then I packed 5 boxes, and all those boxes were things that brought me joy. Didn't bring me joy, it was shed. And I cannot tell you, when I arrived in Scottsdale, what joy I had. I mean, I felt like I was flying, American Airlines, 30,000 feet in the air, because I at 47 years old, I had shed all my stuff.
I have 2 things to say. Love it. But joy can't be the only thing, especially as you get older and older, because you have a bunch of things you need that you don't love or that don't bring you joy. But if you want to stay alive, you need them. Like diabetic testing material, your meds, your shower chair.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I'm very practical. I agree, everything else should be joyful. But learning to distinguish between your needs and your wants is also very important. And not everything is the same level of joy or love either. When you're limited by space, you have to pick your absolute favorites. You can appreciate things, but not own them. And you got to overcome your possession bias a little bit. But
and I will say, those are good points. That,
and you were only 47.
I was only 47, so I didn't have a shower chair.
And you've probably accumulated a few more things than 5 boxes since. Maybe 6, 7.
But I went 4 floors down to a 2-bedroom condo. But I will say, to your point, that to be aware not to overshed. I think that's what she was saying.
Layers of it. It's faster and easier in the long run than trying to do it all instantly.
And I was probably in the overshed mode in that point in time when I was 47. But one thing that I did that was overshedding was when I was in my first marriage, the family had given us for a wedding present this silver platter, tea and coffee set with the creamers and silver and all that. And I had hauled it from house to house to house. I never used it, in decades. And so I just thought, I'm just going to take it to the Goodwill. And so I take it down to the Goodwill and I gave it to him and I called back my sister and told her, I took all the stuff to the Goodwill and I'm sending you stuff. And she was happy. But you need to see how much that was worth. Because I said, well, I think maybe it was worth maybe $500 or $600. Maybe, I can't remember. It was something like that back in the early 80s. And so we'll go online. And so I said,
Was it Valencia?
It was Gorham.
Oh,
Silver. Valued at $13,000. And I took a deep breath and threw on my clothes and ran down the street, drove down the street.
So that is one really good point. It's still worth more than $13,000 to get rid of it if it's in your way. However, I find many of my clients don't have any idea what the value of things is. And so they dismiss things that are actually worth quite a bit, and then they will insist that their Beanie Baby collection bring massive amounts of money. And I'm like, well, do you have Princess Diana for the Grateful Dead? Because otherwise they're not worth anything.
We had the Princess Diana, but it wasn't in the right box.
Yeah, only the first edition, not the recent edition after she died. The original silver.
How much?
Oh, what happened to the
Oh,
silver?
so I and I drove the car about half block, it was actually about several blocks down the road and I run in and I said, that silver set I brought yesterday, it was a mistake. It was a family thing and I need the silver set back. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, we sold that yesterday. And I said, how much did you sell it for? And she said, well, we sold it for a lot more than we did the other silver set that someone else had brought in. And she said, we sold it for $75. And I said, ma'am, do you want to know how much that was worth?
No. It's not worth making me a big deal.
But that family now has an inheritance to give to their
But I will say the point was, my CPA said that I could take all of that off my taxes, the tax deduction.
Yes.
But
however,
always check with your CPA. Some are more creative than others, and it depends on your situation. Yes, because it's supposed to be fair market value. When you donate, unless you itemize every single thing you give to Goodwill, you can't actually take a deduction. It's like a standard deduction, so it's up to a certain amount, and that's the cap. If you do itemize everything, you also have to research fair market value, which changes every year and in every location. So yes, you may have paid, or that thing may have been worth $13,000, but the fair market value is the fact that someone paid $75 for it. So
But it was interesting because my CPA said if you have it on the line that somebody is willing to pay $13,000 for
then you
that,
can
was
take it.
then I
I worked at the Goodwill in the recycling and processor. And this is all very true and very real. And I really wish that their administration and CEO will let people like you come in and be kind of like a specialist to help others that are donating before they give it all at the door. Because I've seen too much of it.
Well, we are available. It's just that people don't want to pay us to help them recover $12,025.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you work at the one here?
No, that was the one up in Reno. That's a big
Also,
one.
ours here is better because they do the 5-layer model here. But
So how do you address the typical responses of, I paid good money for that, and or I may need it someday?
I paid good money for that is, well, you used it up, you didn't use it, it was 30 years ago, I mean, it's only worth however much someone will pay you for it today. You drive a car off the lot, it loses 70% of its value the second you drive off the lot, right? So, debatable. I understand that. Depends on the car and the year. But it's never the same once it's owned. And the I might need it someday is, well, what does that day look like? Is it Tuesday? Is it Sunday? Is it raining? Are you out of the house? Are you in the house? Has someone fallen and they can't get up? Have you decided you're joyfully dancing around the room and you suddenly need your cocktail dress and heels? What does that day look like? Because we don't imagine what that is. We just imagine that something bad might happen. But it might not. And that thing is going to be in your way every day until then. So there's different kinds of rules and things. Some people talk about, the minimalists talk about the 20-20-20. Can you buy it for $20, replace it for $20 within 20 minutes and 20 miles? Various things like that. I figure Walgreens or Target can store most of my stuff on their shelves. But it's up to you. And again, risk tolerance was mentioned and frequency of use. And has that kind of scenario ever happened to you before? People are like, well, they don't make them like they used to. Well, yes, but they also don't connect with any of your current. You can't plug it in anymore. It doesn't play on that TV. It doesn't,
So for reluctant shedders, trust me, the country is full of it. So
90% of people are afraid of letting go of things that are useless.
How do we get the reluctant to do it, or is it usually death that makes that happen? And or can kids flip reluctancy to action, or a little of both? Or I got this. Many of us, I'm assuming, are pretty good at all this, and we've hopefully done a good job. But I've seen 1963 Jeeps in the garages for 30 years, and guess what? Just never got around to fixing it. I could have told him that 29 years ago. But you know what I'm saying. But or is it most likely death? Or can you get a hoarder to come like?
Well, they're different. That's different.
Okay, but how about a reluctant shedder? Can you get them to?
Yes, but it's the layers and it is practice decision making. So bottom line, it's decision making.
Okay.
You want to do the easy stuff first. It's easier to get rid of a pizza box and an old receipt and an expired coupon than it is to get rid of that cocktail dress and you gotta practice with the easy stuff. And then as you get more space and less visual clutter, it becomes easier to make the decision. You have more information. For everything you let go of, you now have more information about the stuff you're keeping. Do I have room for it? Is it a matching set? Do I care if it's a matching set? Do I have 12 of them? Do I only need 3 of them? Is there enough room in the car to put that? Every little piece of information helps you make the rest of the decision.
And I think your point was good. And what I've done, because I have collected more stuff since in the last 16 years, but I have limited space. I have a place to sleep. I have a place to work, my office. I have a place to live, and my deck. And that's it. So there's only so much stuff. But I periodically go through these shedding times. I set a timer, and usually for 15 minutes, and then I'll tackle one thing. Maybe it's a junk drawer, or maybe it's a closet, or maybe it's something in my office, a file cabinet or something, and I'll let the alarm go off as fast as I can. If I'm still getting some energy, I'll set it again for 15 minutes. Right. And sometimes I'll go 3, 4, 5 rounds of it. And it doesn't take a lot just to say, hey, I'm going to give this 15 minutes today.
Yeah, you can't do it all at once. So breaking it down. Yes.
There's a film called Nostalgia. There's actually 3 films.
Yes.
Nostalgia, but this is the 2018 one with Ellen Bernstein and Bruce Stern and John Hamm. And you're following vignettes with an insurance adjuster, and each scenario is different. But it resonated with my husband and I really well, because there's a scene where Ellen Bernstein's only remains of the house that she lived in with her husband burned down. And at the last minute, she ran in and got a baseball that meant nothing to her, but meant something to her husband. And the insurance adjuster said, I'm sorry, blah, 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 you got no money, and we can't give you anything. And she said, I have this baseball, and she goes to Vegas, meets John Hamm, and John Hamm walks her through giving it up. And it was, give it a second life. And the other is later, rehome. And so my husband and I rehome and second life things, because if we're really attached to it, but we don't want it anymore, we're like, someone out there is going to love that thing, and we let it have a new life. So that worked for us, was the emotional.
That's a really good method.
And it's a perfect segue into a comment we have in the chat room. This is from Linda. She says, I belong to a group of perfume collectors. We meet monthly to do swaps, and afterwards we donate any leftovers to a battered women's shelter. The director said our donations are always so well received because when women flee a dangerous environment, they often don't have time to gather luxury items like perfume, and it makes them feel good about themselves again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So not only giving something a second life, but
giving someone.
yeah.
Nice. Yes, in the back.
Relative to enlighten me to Google Lens,
Yes.
where you point at something and it shows what it's sold for. Is that a good reference?
You know, I haven't used Google Lens, but that's what it sells for new. So a better way is going on eBay and seeing not what it's being offered at, but what the last time it sold was. Yeah,
I was just going to follow up with that because I'm using the Google Lens quite a bit these days, and it will refer you to eBay or Etsy.
Yeah, for the used
they're
items.
dealing with a very special market and a very special group of people searching. So what it last sold for is the real value. They might say it's worth about $1,500.
And then you realize it's been online at that price for the last 12 years. And and they just didn't want to sell it, but their wife made them put it on there. That cheap is still on there. It's yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about hoarding.
Yes. Yeah, let me just clarify for everybody, because this is a thing that happens all the time. Hoarding is actually in the DSMR. It is a version of OCD and anxiety and depression related, and it requires specialized care. And it is different than people that just have a lot of stuff. So,
I have a longtime friend. She's 93. Good physical health and mental health, set for her working. She lives alone in Colorado on 35 acres, and a nice, very nice home. But her hoarding has become so extreme, she won't allow anybody to come visit. So I may or may not be part of her, may or may not be a co-executive. I don't know. She's indicated it, but not indicated it.
Right.
So it troubles me because I know potentially at any time, and I would like to help her get rid of some of this stuff now, but I don't think because of the disorder that she would. So I guess my role will probably be after.
Yeah, so two things. If you are dealing with family members or friends that are hoarders, they don't see it as a problem. So it does more harm than good if you force them to get rid of things. They must be in charge of the decisions, and your judgment makes it worse. So people all the time will be like, well, I cleaned out my mom's house, it was so full. And 6 months later, it's worse because they just go get the stuff back out of the trash or out of new trash. But you can broach the subject, but I don't think it's going to be worth your time. You can start researching, and I have resources for anyone that needs it, in particular for the Institute of Challenging Disorganization. has lots of resources, and there are specialized cleaning services that will come and help you clean out on the other end.
And oftentimes, I've seen, I used to be the administrator of psychiatric services, and oftentimes an intervention was made where a spouse said, I need bleeding if you don't take care of this one problem. And we did have patients that came in actually inpatient-wise, not only have medication management to deal with psychotherapy on a regular basis to try to deal with this so they can save their marriage.
They'll take
One of your
take the kids
books,
away, take the house away, and all that stuff.
There's no one of your books would not be the thing to do.
It won't change anything. It'll just be another book you'll have to get rid of later.
To me, I think that's part is the safety issue, because not only for hoarders, certainly it's a safety issue for hoarders who can't get around their house. I mean, that's a big deal. But even in the general population, I know many people that have aged in a place that was inappropriate with lots of stairs and other things because they were afraid to get rid of their stuff. So safety is another big reason that we do need to start downsizing now, because we're probably not going to get healthy in the future. We're probably going to even decline over the years unless we started a program or something if we could. But as we age, we need to remember that we have to look at safety as well.
That's a really good point.
I'm curious about what seems to me to be a very rapid rise in the number of storage facilities.
Connection and the market possibility.
Is this a way for this woman could she tell her friend, how about if I put this in a safe space for you?
It's in a safe space already.
Okay.
And those who take care of it as well as she can.
All right.
So no, it won't work. And if you get her one, she'll just fill both.
Okay. But are families having to deal then with all of these extra storage spaces?
Yeah.
I inherited free storage.
I come from
This is the
I come from a family of pilots. I'm shedding, and so there's a point where I don't want to, I need help with certain things, but other things are obviously junk, and I just got to, and so what's the dividing line? Last time I checked for my sister, and they want $6,000 and her stuff isn't worth $6,000.
Right. Well, but is her life worth $6,000? It's not about the stuff. It's never about the stuff. It's about the life and what you want your life to be. So you have junk, your pilers. Why is it still at your house?
Yeah.
It's because you need some help motivating, making decisions, understanding resources. And someone may quote you 6,000, and someone may quote you 2, and some might say 15. You can look around for other resources. You can do part of it yourself. You can take online courses or read books and follow their instructions. But the bottom line is, it's worth what the value of your life is.
And if
You may not be willing to pay that, but
as someone who has paid it,
it's worth
every
every penny.
investment, because otherwise, would I do it? And how long would it take me to do it? And how much strain would I have to psychologically dreading the next? Because I'm not really like. But as a dentist, somebody else does all that stuff. So you really get ruined as a dentist, because someone takes care of all your stuff, and then you go home and it's like, well, nobody's going to see you again. That's ruined my life. But that is, it really is worth it when you think about the freedom that you have. It's 100%. That's the investment I think.
Some organizers will come and just give you an action plan. So you pay for one day, not the full service, and you get an action plan, and then you can execute it on your own or with friends or whatever. But it's still worth it because it's faster. When you work with someone that can help do the pre-sorting and help you do the decisions in the right order, so they all get easier as you go. We have a lot of questions coming in. I want to turn it over here in front of Danielle, and then
Oh, I'm just another story about storage. And so the woman has passed. She had 10 rooms. It was all well organized. She has 5 children. The 2 daughters were able to stay for a couple of months and go through stuff and put it into the storage facility to decide who wanted it. Was it going to go to Kansas
So
City?
they didn't decide, they just moved it.
They kept some, but not all 5 were there to make the decision. And then it's Albuquerque. So 5 years later, the storage unit has been broken into. The homeless are living in it. They have gotten the door
That has
open.
nothing to do with Albuquerque, but that has to do with the fact that they abandoned their stuff in a storage locker.
Correct. And so the valuable might be worth something. Things were all gone, of course, because they had been recycled. And then they emptied the storage, what was left in the storage locker, brought it home to her house. She's got arthritis and it's a problem getting rid of it.
Can you imagine the storage fees for 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, the average storage unit these days costs people $175 a month. And they typically have them for years and never go back. Daniel.
A question about how you guys can, as you're helping people shed and organize and downsize, how that can turn into legacy projects.
Oh.
Right? If we have elections or whatnot, like how we can dole those out and turn that into a legacy project.
Absolutely.
Do you help them do that? No, you just speak about it.
What
did you do with it? Yeah.
With myself? You absolutely can, and I think that when you, in my case, but you have to find the family members that appreciate what you want to put into a legacy project. That probably is the biggest difficulty for my daughters. You know, I paid for some, right? So I thought, look at the next step. Some of them love it. Well, one daughter does, so that's great. The other daughter, now not so much. So what I did for her was she had a very expensive China pattern that she bought for her wedding, and she did like that and wanted to keep that, and nobody could afford to buy it for her because it was really too expensive, and it was a simple pattern. So I just painted a whole set of it for her, and that was my legacy to her. So I think that yes, you can do that. You can turn it into a legacy project, but they have to appreciate the legacy, because if they're inherent, like if I had given all this stuff that I painted to this daughter, you know, it would be back in the far end of their garage, probably broken in a million pieces. So you just have to find the person that appreciates it. And unfortunately, that's getting harder and harder and harder because the next generation doesn't want our stuff as much, or more minimalist. But I hear Kansas City that China is coming back, so I'm just hoping.
The secondary piece of that, you know, not everybody has kids to pass it on to, and they still want some sort of legacy. So tell your story. It doesn't need to be every single piece. We have other resources. Why am I blanking? Yeah, Carney. Marty has a great storytelling thing, and you know, you can take some of your things and turn it into some sort of legacy, whether it's a story or a shadow box or a donation to a historical society or whatever, but you get to curate it. And all of it is about curation. If you leave it to your family members, they're going to find all your sketchy diaries and learn all about how you were a groupie with the big band. You were like not actually at home when you said you were going to come, and you know, it's a different story, which is all fine, but you can tell your own story before someone else does it.
I have very little from my own childhood, and I was thinking when you were sharing, Kimberly, that we put little packages together for your kids of the stuff like their 5th grade. And I would love to see my 5th grade.
Yeah, actually, I did. I put together
And art that I did when I was a kid. I have none of that. For them to show their kids what they did when they were kids.
I did put it together, and one daughter appreciated it.
But you just have to decide whether to throw it out or not.
Right. But then it's their decision. It's in their court, and so I don't have to make that decision. So it's emotionally on my hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have 2 real estate scenarios. One, going back to hoarding really quick. I had a listing appointment, and I didn't know that it was a hoarder house, so I got there, and there was a little path, and I had to do the listing appointment on their bed. with them. And they didn't end up listing because he didn't want to get rid of her items, even though I told her you can get a pot and just move everything in there, not even sort it. Just go to the new house and then you can sort it or whatever at the new place. But they ended up not wanting to because she
Can't
didn't
make
want
the
to.
decision.
Yes. And then another one is we're getting some listings where I've had some where the kids don't want nothing of the parents, and it's just an estate sale in their house, and all like this one gentleman was like a photographer, and he had all his pictures, and they didn't want nothing like in that house, not one thing. They didn't care. They were at a state, and they were just like get a company in there to sell everything. So we're seeing that a lot too, where they don't even, the kids don't want nothing.
Yeah, so we can't really judge other people. We don't know what their situation was. We don't know what kind of bad memories those photos may have brought up. But we also can be helpful and support. Like if you find yourself in those situations, there are services that can do that for them so that they don't have to worry.
And part of that's a minimalism. It's, you know, that I certainly never experienced when I was growing up. I was a middle-aged woman, I forget, right? But now there's this minimalist strain that's kind of running through the kids, and they just don't want it. And my son, my daughters, the one that doesn't want the stuff, they just built this beautiful new house. There's not one thing on the walls, not one hole in any of the walls. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful home. They decorate otherwise, but it's like they just think differently than we do. So it's not a judgment on us if they don't want our stuff. You say, "Oh, it's my porcelain, but I painted it." I don't
With them in mind, right?
But they still want it. I have to shed. But I think we just have to really.
We could keep talking about this for a long time, but we have another session, so we gotta wrap up here.
Okay, so yes. Now I know probably nobody in here's a doctor, and Kim, you're a dentist, so
I'm retired.
You're retired. Okay, but we're going to allow you to be the doctor and fill out your own prescription, and it is what are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to continue to do? One action on each one, and then sign your prescription. You are an MD for the next 5 minutes. All right?